Right, qualifiers this weekend. 4 games: Kildare against Tyrone, Mayo against Armagh, Laois against Offaly, Westmeath against Clare. They're all on tomorrow. We'll start with the best game because it's going to be Mayo against Armagh. This isn't a great matchup for Mayo.
No, it's not. It's definitely not. They lucked out by the fact that where it's on, but it is definitely not. This is not. I have to say, the down game was a potential banana skin. We kind of already highlighted that, before the game. They came through it well. But this is Armagh have really impressed me. They've been building very, very well over with the last number of years with McGeeney. Unlucky against Cavan, you would say, and are now battle hardened. Have a good few games under the belt, and will give Mayo their fill of it, no doubt about it. Got some really good talent. Obviously, young Burns is a serious player. The usual stuff up front, they have quality, and I've always liked McGeeney. I think he's a very practical manager. He's a guy who thinks long and hard about the game. He's a guy who thinks he's quite inventive and quite, kind of forward thinking with regard to the game. Now sometimes that can go with him, or sometimes it can go against him, in the sense of he'll decide on a particular tactic or a particular position, and he might just say, that position is now whatever. I remember years ago meeting him in a coffee shop, and he was just over Kildare, and we were talking about the modern day midfielder, and he was just saying, it's finished. The modern day, the big tall man, 6'2" plus, is over. You need mobility around midfield. And this was really before. This was still when there was a lot of big men in midfield, just catching big kickouts. And he was reading Moneyball at the time. He had the book, and I was referencing it with him, and he was saying, it's all about the stats and seeing how many. And he was kind of regarding the kickouts and how kickouts were becoming so important. So he was well ahead even in his thinking then, and he was seeing how the start and the genesis of all of that and where it would go. And I think he tried to bring a lot of that into even Kildare, and he was probably just a bit ahead of his time, because ultimately, if you have a big, tall, really good fella, he's probably going to be better than a small fella.
I was about to say that you can read Moneyball all you want, but this might come down to a battle of height. Because
Correct.
When I say it's a bad matchup for Mayo, I'm talking about that full back line, which isn't the tallest, coming up against Andrew Murnin, Rian O'Neill and Jamie Clark. Now, of course, it's going to be mostly the former two who might be the ball winners inside in that full forward line, but this could be route one. You talk about Jarlath Hogue as well, up against the midfield that's been decimated with injuries as well. Things have been trending in Armagh's favour now for the last few weeks. Yeah,
absolutely. And I don't know, and maybe this is always the way with Mayo going through the qualifiers, but you get a sense that they have to be, and the qualifiers is all about momentum and building it and getting through, but it's also about panel, and it's also about that you get a couple of guys who are just coming to the fore, and you unearth a few talents that become the next year's big players, and he really needs to do that, Horan. And we discussed this before about going back to the old guard, and the old guard, looking at the old guard will bail you out, and I think they will to a certain degree, but then I think when push comes to shove on some of the really intense battles, that's potentially where ultimately you fail, and that's just a matter of life. I think McGeeney has a really good mix of youth and experience. They're quite a young team, and I think he has a team now that are really playing for each other, that are very confident in each other as well. Physically very strong, conditioned well. You'd expect that from him. Can mix it either way with you, but they've got some serious talent up front, and they've got that. If you go back to that old thing, Stevie McDonald, Ronan Clark, the O'Rourkes, the McKeevers, whatever about the steel in that Armagh team, the McEntees, there was lads who could kick points for fun all over the team. You had threats everywhere. If Stevie wasn't doing it, and Oisin wasn't doing it, or Ronan weren't doing it, well, Paddy McKeever would come in and do it for you, or the McEntees would chip in a few scores, or the O'Rourkes would. So you'd a lot of fellas who could kick points. Before, a lot of teams had, halfbacks and fullbacks who are well able to come up the field and kick points, as well as your midfielders. Like McGrain was well able to kick scores. And I think he's starting to do that now. He's starting to share that out. He's starting to have fellas who are able to come in and just pick off points and alleviate a little bit of pressure from a team that might just decide, well, we're going to sit down on Clark and we're really going to, kind of take out the space, to go back to the Wexford idea or even the Limerick idea, that we're just going to hone in on that full forward line and really restrict them. They've a lot of fellas that can kick long range scores.
Who's going to win?
I think Armagh will do it. I think Armagh will take them. It's as I say, I think the venue has a big factor. I think Armagh might cause an upset here.
Kildare against Tyrone also tomorrow, of course, clashing with the Irish Derby at the Curragh. Tyrone are an interesting one because they've been back and forth between different styles within games this year, but maybe that's exactly what they need. Maybe that's exactly what every team needs, the ability to have a plan A and a plan B, and really what we've just been witnessing during this championship is Tyrone trying to find out that perfect balance.
I think so. I think, when you look at the Donegal game, the manner in which it was played, Petey Hart he's the heartbeat of that team, excuse the pun, but he's not only a leader. I think he's a player that at when they need moments, he more than likely comes up with them. And I think a number of the other players like Matty Donnelly and guys like this, they look to him to create things. And if you watch any of the big moments, or any of the majorly big moments of Tyrone over the last number of years, he's had a hand in something along the line to get that happening. And I think they motor an awful lot better. They just seem much more balanced when he's playing. And for Mickey Hart and his management team, he's a guy that they can put into different areas to either create or to cause issues or to block up things. And they have unbelievable, they have obviously massive confidence that he can mix it. He's not a guy who just decides that if he's playing 5 or 6 or 7 that he's just going to, he'll be on the ball. He'll get himself involved. So he's a massive player for them. And I think the Donegal thing, it kind of unravelled a bit for them, very quickly. Now, that was a worrying thing, in that it unravelled. When the game plan wasn't working, it unravelled. So I think Hart will realise that and say, OK, well, we need to potentially have game plan 2 and 3 organised. Kildare are on a different journey. And, I think they have a lot of talent. I think they have some steel. They've got some very, very talented players, but the fact of the matter is, I think they need a bit more steel. And I think I'd expect Tyrone to get back going on this one. I really would. I think it'll be a high-scoring game, but I think Tyrone ultimately will come out the winners of it. Yeah,
it's interesting reading Peter Canavan's column this morning saying that they left 3-7 behind them against the Dubs, Kildare did, which is kind of like a statement of intent and stuff like that. But then again, how much did Meath leave behind the Dubs? And
they did.
You leave a lot behind the Dubs.
You do. The forward line now for Kildare are good. McCormick is a seriously good player. The time when Kildare played Meath and Navan in the league, he went off injured. And the whole place breathed a sigh of relief because no one could handle him in the first half. He's a serious talent, and to be fair, he should have got a goal or two against Dublin. They have got that, but I think it's the other end that I'd be a little bit more worried about.
For sure. Laois against Offaly. Which way are you calling this? It's already
Offaly.
Really?
Yeah, I was mightily impressed with Offaly in Navan. They should have beaten me that day. Their kick out, the goalkeeper was as good a goalkeeper and as good a kick out that I've seen across the country.
Right.
He was absolutely nailed on with his kick outs. Better than Cluxton. He was passing the guys. There was a lot of kind of movement, and as guys were running away at full speed, he was literally popping the ball onto their chests. He set so many attacks off from kickouts. And if anyone is either at the game or has an ability to see it, just watch out for him because he was fantastic. I really thought he was brilliant. Now, ultimately, Meath pulled ahead because a high ball came into the square. And he unfortunately dropped it, and there was a I think it ended up being a penalty. Yeah, he dragged down one of the Meath players, but up to that point, he was absolutely imperious. And their own press on the Meath kick out was very, very impressive. They zonal marked. They caused serious problems on the Meath kick-out. They ran out of steam, to be honest, in that last game, in 10-15 minutes ago, and they didn't have a whole pile to bring off the bench. But with Anton Sullivan, with a couple of fellas, they've got obviously McNamee, they've got a really, really good forward balance. They've McNamee, and I can't remember the young lad he has in beside him. He is lightning quick, and they work off each other really well. They've got a nice settled defence, decent enough midfield, mobile midfield. So they play the game well, and Mohan, to be fair, has them motoring well. I think they'll have too much for Laois.
Right. Must watch that goalkeeper, Paddy Dunnigan. He spent time at Athlone Town for a few years and made his debut for Offaly last year. So that's a name to remember, clearly.
Yeah.
Finally then, Westmeath against Clare.
I think Westmeath will win that.
I think you're going against the grain on both of these. I haven't checked odds or anything, but I would imagine Clare and Laois are slight favourites for the games. Maybe not. I could be mistaken there, but they're tight ones to call.
Yeah, I think that one is a very, very tight one. Like, I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't see much of Clare this year. They had up and down results in Division 2. Some decent ones, some not so good ones. I don't know if it's a situation where you have a management team that have been there quite a while now. Westmeath have Cooney in. It's a bit fresher, I would feel. And is it a situation? I think Westmeath have been building. To be honest with you, I think they're improving, and they're getting some players back. So yeah, it's a hard one, but I'm going to go with Westmeath on that one.
So we're going for Tyrone, Armagh, Offaly and Westmeath. They're your 4 picks for the weekend.